Is that on? Okay. Hi. How's everyone doing? Hi. Oh, you're here. I may have used a picture of you or a whole case study. It's fine. It'll be complimentary. Don't worry. Um, so if we haven't met yet, my name is Leslie Bailey. I'm the founder and CEO of Indie Maven and Maven Space. And thank you for coming to our first Lunch and Learn of the year. So this is something we've done sporadically for our programming at Maven Space, but through our partnership with Indie BizPass this year, we will be doing these monthly for the whole year. So this is the first one. Because I'm in charge, I get to make up what we're talking about. But throughout this conversation, or as you get familiar, if you're not quite familiar with Indie Maven or Maven Space, if you have requests for content of what you would like to see more of in these Lunch and Learns, please, we love feedback and would love to know what it is that you actually want to hear from us about. But because my background is media, we thought we'd start off with some media must-haves. And then we'll kind of tailor this. This whole series throughout the year won't just be about marketing and media and PR, but that made sense to start with. Based on my expertise, but I might, kindly ask my husband to come in and join and lead one at some point, as well as other partners in our community. Is that the Maven Minute? Thanks, I already forgot about it. So one thing that we do at our Indie Maven monthly meetups is something called a Maven Minute. And so if you wrote, thank you, Lily, it's like very Vanna White. If you wrote your name on this card, and this will be something we do every event moving forward. So if you put your name on one of these, we draw 3 of them and you get 60 seconds to tell us whatever you want to talk about. So you can just sort of introduce yourself and say, I'm shy, I don't really want to say anything else. But if you want to give a full 59 to 60 second spiel about what you do and who you are, feel free to do that. So we will start off with Lavreen Hall. Yeah, that's nice. Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Lavreen Hall, and I'm what you call a spiritual serial entrepreneur. I have a mental health coaching business, and I have a mental health counseling business. And I host retreats for women. And then I'm the founder of FIT, and that is focused on helping women to do a lot of self-care, financial freedom, relationships, and your spirituality. Our retreat is always in September. And I'm always looking for new people. Our FIT group is starting a new cohort in March of this year. And I'm an author and writer and a motivational speaker and an international speaker. So that's me.
Thank you.
Any questions, just call me.
Thank you, Lavreen. Next up, we have Zena. Where are you? I didn't even see you. Yeah, y'all should have sat over there.
I'm Zena. I'm a personal finance writer. I come from a journalism background, but I've recently launched a speaking business focusing on financial wellness and literacy. So doing financial workshops and seminars, anything from explaining financial aid to students to young employees who are just got their first 401k and don't know what to do. I am also working on my Series 65 license, so I'll be a registered advisor soon, and so either opening up my own shop or joining. So if you need any writing, speaking, or soon to be paid financial advice, let me know.
Thank you. And last but not least, Megan Watson. You can, yeah.
I'm Megan Watson. I'm a residential interior designer. As of Monday, I'm no longer with my 9 to 5 and focusing on my own business.
Congrats.
So I can help moves on remodels. You know.
Welcome. Thank you. Can you give me some water, please? Thank you. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, and if you've already heard about me, I'm sorry, you have to hear more. We're going to talk about pitching. Each of these will be broken out in subsequent lunch and learns because each of these could, most of these, topics could be a full hour, if not more, on their own. So I sort of chose what I think as a journalist and an editor and a writer, the things that have been most important to me on the receiving end. There are people from all different kind of stages in business in this room, which I know. So if some of this feels like, oh my gosh, I already know this. I can't believe I'm going to sit here for a full hour and she's going to tell me anything I already know. Hopefully we will cover different levels of business and you will take away something that you don't know. But also it's a good reminder, even if you're like, I got headshots, I'm good. Were you like me and they were 10 years old maybe? So Faith hooked me up. But even then I grew out my bangs. I was like, oh, it's time for more headshots again. So these are the things we have to think about. So we'll kind of go through the pitch, images, links, tools, interviews. I have a little bonus gift for you at the end, and then where you can find me. Thank you, my husband and my assistant, Daniel. So as I said, I'm Leslie, founder of Maven Space and Indie Maven. But before doing all of this, I was a journalist. So I did not go to journalism school. I think I was the only person working as a reporter at the Indianapolis Star that had never gone to journalism school. I found my start on the streets of Broad Ripple at 2 a.m. when a guy was like, you should be a blogger. And I was like, what's a blogger? And so I got my start blogging, which then led to a career in journalism. We'll kind of get into more of the other places and why I come to this from several different approaches. But throughout this last couple years, I have been named on the Forbes Next 1000 list, listed as one of Indiana's 200 most influential leaders, and a year or two ago was a recipient of NAWBO's Rising Entrepreneur Award, and we have those awards coming up tomorrow. So if you are a woman in business in Indy, I definitely recommend checking out NAWBO as a resource. They have been great for me. So, okay, some of these are a lot of like crossover. Some of these I have written for, some of these I have been quoted in. So some of these I've been the subject, some of them I've been a writer. I tried to focus on the ones where I was the one being interviewed. There is some crossover because I also happen to work at some of those publications. But I have done one-off segments and interviews for Wish TV. I had a regular segment on and off over the years for Fox 59. I've done more podcasts than I can count, but those seemed like some that you might be familiar with, as well as writing and reporting for The Star and Indie Monthly, as well as some others. Yes, I was quoted in Penthouse magazine once. I was not pictured. I just want to be clear. That was a quote when the Super Bowl came to Indy, and I actually can't remember even what I was talking about, but there's a claim to fame there somewhere. So as you can see, wide variety of business, definitely not business or a different type of business, podcast, TV, all of the above. We have a special guest that I didn't even know was going to be here today. And I thought I would include, am I going to say this Orangely? Orangely, correctly. Because I was trying to think who recently, and I will ask for forgiveness later if they don't mind if I use them, and I knew they would not. But who recently has done something that is a local business, someone in our community, somebody that has something to talk about, and Orangely popped up on my screen as I was scrolling through Instagram, because yes, I get a lot of inspiration and news from Instagram, as I'm sure many of you do. But when we talk about our pitch to the media, a reporter, a content creator is absorbing lots of information, just like we all are, right? We're talking about scrolling through Instagram. They're getting emails, they're getting phone calls. It's coming from every different direction. I still to this day get pitched in like my Facebook DMs. Is that even a thing? A messenger? I don't know. I don't check them, and I'm sorry if I ignored you. But they should be just concise, get to the point, but you also have to be engaging in that short amount of time and provide information. And that's like a really tricky thing to balance, because you're going, okay, I have this one opportunity to get this person's attention, but I can't really say all this because my business is so robust and I contain multitudes. So how am I going to get that across in a sentence or a subject line? And I think that Kristen and Andy have done a fabulous job when it comes to not only marketing their business, but thinking about how they present themselves in our community. And so, with my case study, this is a very old school journalism approach, but who's heard of like the 5 W's? Do you remember learning this in like elementary school, right? So to this day, I will go through if I'm editing an article and be like, what are the 5 W's there? Because it helps me make sure that the piece that I am looking at contains all of the information that someone might want. So when we talk about an elevator pitch, right? Everyone heard of an elevator pitch, right? So you need to be able to pitch yourself or your business, and essentially the amount of time that it takes to go on an elevator ride, I guess we call those. So right, depends how many floors and how big the building is, but ultimately, can you say who you are and what you do in 30 seconds? Can you do it in 60 seconds? Do you need longer? So the way I look at it is if you've got the 30 seconds, this is fast. I just go for the who you are and what do you do. You don't really need to get into the backstory of why you started your business. You don't need to tell them about the latest thing that you have going on necessarily. This is your chance to just make sure that they remember your face and what you do, because down the road, when they think, oh gosh, I wish I knew a writer that specialized in financing, but maybe also speaking. I know that I heard Zena introduce herself at this event and say, yes, I do know someone who does that. And we can file that person away or contact them as a source for our article or our story or our content. From there, that's where I build on the where, why, and when. That's when you're really having time, and maybe it's not just the elevator ride, you're actually at the cocktail party and somebody's like, well, what do? You don't be like, oh, I do this and then sort of walk away, right? They're going to continue to ask you questions like, oh, that's so interesting. Why did you start that? So that's where we get into the remaining 3, math. So using our case study of Orangely, who are they? The sisters, Andy and Kristen. What are they? They're a women-owned wellness bottle shop, which I think is such a cool phrase, by the way, when I saw that the other day. But essentially, they're an alcohol-free boutique. So big fan, even if you are not completely alcohol-free, if you ever want just that thing to supplement that is not alcohol or take a break during dry January, good job. If you've made it, you're on day 29, keep going. If you didn't, that's cool too. But that is what their business is. So where are they? They're in Carmel with locations coming. And that's what we call foreshadowing, because that will lead us to, well, why do we care? Well, alcohol-free movement is huge right now, right? Like that's all everybody's talking about is drinking less, quitting drinking, sober life. You know it. I don't need to tell you. That movement is growing, but that means so is their business, which is very exciting because now not only do they have this rebrand to talk about, because I didn't say this, but in case you didn't know, their business was formerly called Lauren's AF. So they've got this new brand. That's not really something necessarily a media outlet's going to pick up. Like, guess what? Orangely changed their name. That's a fun social media post. That's not something that somebody's going to send a reporter out and say, like, tell me all the reasons why you decided to redo your branding. That's not newsworthy. But what is newsworthy is because of this growth, they have a new location coming. And that's cool from so many different perspectives. It's women business, it's geographic, it's neighborhood buzz. You could come at that angle from a lot of different places. And that's when we find out, oh, wait, I haven't heard of this. Is this another alcohol-free shop? You find out, oh no, it's Lauren's. I used to go to their Carmel location, and now I can go to the one in Sobro in March, right? It's very nerve-wracking to have the person here and be like, none of that's true. She's a terrible reporter. So there's a good example, right? You've got your 5 W's, and that is a story. That's something that we can sink our teeth into. That's something we can write about. So that's the first thing you want to have to lay your groundwork. So who are you? What do you do? Where do you do it? Say I work out of this cool co-working space called Maven Space. Why do you do what you do? there's not always going to be a when, and that could just be part of your backstory. When did you found this company? Are you new in business? Have you been around 20 years? Do you have an event that we need to know about? So each of these can kind of finger off into their own categories, but those are the basics that you want to do. And if you're looking at this and going, these colors are pretty, but they don't look like the Indie Maven colors, that's because we are also rebranding. Thank you. I wasn't looking for that, but thanks. And I kind of thought we would have launched it by now, but we didn't. So I still created this presentation in our new colors. I hope you enjoy them. Another person in the room who snuck in the back, I'm not naming any names, images, right? And this is the one where I'm like, you're probably going, yeah, I have my headshot. I have photos. It's what we don't need to talk about this. We really do. We really, really do, because one is good. It's probably not enough. With the, oh, this is going to make me feel, the invention of the iPhone. Photos have changed a lot, right? We're not running around with our little digital cameras, although I found mine the other day and those are back. So now I'm confused what we're supposed to use, but there's kind of no excuse for not having a decent photo at minimum. So when I was looking through our inventory of photos that I could use for examples, Starla and Lativa, who are the founders of Create Connect Collab, these photos of them were perfect. We got some kind of product shots in there. We see that they have merch. It might be hard from where you're sitting, but you can see where ish happens. That's one of their taglines. We've got the logo. We see in here that even though this maybe isn't something they're selling, but stop doubting yourself, work hard. Like, you get a vibe of what she does without really even knowing what she does, right? You have the impression that this is somebody who got a camera here. Maybe she's a photographer. She is. But there are clues in that. We see in the other photo with Lativa, same thing. They've got their branding on their shirts, but you can see their personality. If you know them, you can just hear them right now in this picture. But even if you don't, you get the idea that they're fun, they're outgoing, they are here to make an impression. They've got these crisp, beautiful photos. So I thought they were a really good example. And who got their headshots? Yeah. Okay, so if you didn't, Sonia will be doing some follow-up, but she is here doing headshots for this very reason. She heard me say that we were doing this event and was like, oh, well, what if people could just come get their headshots? Because this is the type of thing where you can think through where you can get headshots either free or at a discounted rate. Maybe it's a donation. I also want to emphasize it is very worth spending your money on photography with a photographer. I am not the person who will always preach spending a lot of money on your design and your branding. I would much rather you spend that money on maybe a trademark or a really good accountant. But photography is sort of where I shift that approach, because you can do really pretty designs in Canva, but Canva can't, okay, I guess AI, you can get a picture of yourself now, but we're not going there for these purposes. So with all of the things that you might be doing in the world to pitch yourself or your business, these are the kind of things that I want you to be thinking through as you're considering your photography needs. So as we talked about, headshots and portraits, you got to have that, right? That's just if you have a social media profile or, especially LinkedIn, like, we all know the importance. And I think, again, that alone, we can get into the colors that you're wearing in the photo. Are you showing teeth or you're not showing teeth? That can change, like, your role. Are you a salesperson? Are you a serious person? Are you an academic? Like, your headshot can, as we saw with Starla's photo, tell you a lot about who this person is. If you are a product-based business, that is also a must. In fact, even maybe more so than the headshot. If you have a product and you do not have good photography, what is the point? like you have to be able to show people. And when we think about this purposes for the media, You're like, well, it's the news. They're going to come out and they're going to take photos of everything. And then I'm going to have photos of everything. It's been a minute since I was in a newsroom or in a magazine, but it has not gotten better. The media outlets, and as an owner of a media outlet, we don't have the resources to send photographers out to things. The photographers that are still on staff, bless them, are going to the crime scenes and the big stuff that's making the front page, as much as I know they would love, because I know all the photographers in the city would love to be out photographing local businesses and their products. It's just not the way that budgets run anymore. So they're more likely, even when I was at some of these publications, to reach out to you and say, I'm going to do this story on you, but I'm going to need you to provide the images. And so when you do that, making sure, which we'll get into with the size and the rights, and are those your images to be sharing? So we'll talk about that in a little bit too. So those are kind of the two main things. If you have an event, if you are going to the media to talk about a 5K that your nonprofit is doing, obviously, if you've had said 5K before, you will have photos from this event, but maybe you've never had it before. So that's where, okay, the headshot about you will come in handy. Obviously, this is different if you are doing a TV segment, because if you're doing a live in studio, you will be sitting there, but they will need photos for B-roll. So when you watch the news, you see the interview with the person, and then they're jumping to the B-roll, right? To the video of the runners or the photo of the runners. That's so to give you an example, if I did my segment on Fox 59, that was maybe 3 minutes. I had 6 items. I was going to talk about 6 events happening over the course of 3 minutes. That would mean I need 2 to 3 images for each item that I'm talking about. So essentially 18 little pieces of content, which between us is the reason I stopped doing that. Because for me to find, it's easy for me to go talk about those things, but then to find 18 pieces of the content, and because not every business owner is you and has invested in the time in this lunch and learn, they don't have that readily available. Or, you know what? Yeah, we've been meaning to take photos of our product. We'll get you that in 2 weeks. And I'm like, cool. We're doing this tomorrow. So I'll have to catch you for the next one. And now you just missed that media opportunity. Having those events photos are great. Even just the action shots too. Not as great as portraits are. It doesn't always have to be formal. And your portrait or your headshot, while I recommend investing in photography, could also just be, have a friend who just takes really good Instagram photos, and you're like, you know what? She always seems to find that right light. Have her come shoot a shot of you. If you have a physical business, I think a lot of people forget even just the interior or the exterior of your business. So if I were doing a holiday gift guide and I was on Fox 59 talking about this, or we're doing it for Indie Maven in the print, I can show the picture of the product that we're recommending, but maybe we have a slider, and I'm also showing you the outside of the building that says Silver in the City. And you're going, oh yeah, I passed that place on Mass Ave. Have those extra shots. So you obviously have to think about you or your offerings or your business. If you have service-based business where you're like, I don't really have a product and I work out of Maven Space, and number one, is a great location to have your headshots done. Natural light obviously is great. Or if we set up a portrait situation like we have here today. But that could look like you talking to one of your clients. You set them up in the corner, you're having a meeting, and that's going to be more of that candid photo, but still great to use. I won't dive too much in because I am not a photographer, but I do know the basics of what sizes we need, even if you're going to mostly use your photos. And this is another reason to work with a photographer, to make sure that you have photos that are high res enough for print, that haven't been saved a bunch of times and resaved and now the resolution is down. Just making sure that the photos you are offering are nice and crisp and of good quality, making sure they're the right file type. And then also just a variety of sizes can also be really useful. If you're speaking at an event and somebody is designing the Eventbrite header, your portrait may look awesome, but maybe they're using a landscape design. So just thinking through when you do those headshots, don't just get the one and walk away. Let's try and make sure that you're looking at and making, maybe this one's further back so we can crop that into a square. But just thinking through the different sizes that you might need. When it comes to media, which is what we're talking about here today, it's really imperative that you understand the rights that you have to photos, and being in a photo does not give you ownership of the photo. You're like, but it's a photo of me, therefore I own it. And it's not. It's like an artist painting a picture of you and you're really like, I own that because it's me. No, the artist did that. So the photographer is the one that created that piece of content. They own that unless they were for hire or doing that by contract or some sort of an agreement for you. So that's all the more reason to hire a photographer, or just make sure that if you are going to something like this, Sonia, thank you so much for the beautiful pictures. I just want to make sure, or she's going to typically tell you in advance, like, yes, these are now for your personal use. Probably don't go sell them, but I don't know who's selling photos of themselves anyway. But just making sure that you have that permission. So a lot of times what we would see is, well, it's on their website, so I'm just going to go screenshot it or download it. And if it's on their website, that's the public domain, and that is not the case. So there are some elements with social media that can allow things to be more accessible in a public domain, but for the most part, you want to err on the side of, it's not okay for me to use this. Don't do what I did today and use it and then ask for forgiveness. Those were two, do as I, what does it say? Not as I do. That was different. But making sure you're requesting permission in advance. And then also, same thing, a screenshot. You've gone on IndieStyle and you're talking about your new candles, and you had a friend that got a screenshot or you pulled it off of their website. The number of times I have been provided a photo and the person's like, here's a photo of me, but I didn't realize that it was that. And then in the corner, oh, I see like IndieStyle's on there now. Also, even if you did have that permission, their competitor station doesn't want to run a photo of you on their competitor's stage, right? So it's a lot to think about, but it's really important stuff to think about, because that can, again, be the thing that's going to make or break your opportunity to be featured. And then if you are going to use a Drive or a Dropbox, something like that, just make sure that you have adjusted the settings and provided the link, because the amount of times that somebody will send over a link and it's locked and I have to request it and it's going to this email, it just becomes a nightmare. Or use the password protected sharing. Just when you're emailing them, you'll say, hey, here's my SmugMug link. The password is I love you. Good. It's locked. It's protected, but they can access it. So what do you think this person does? Good job. All A's. So, oh my God, I did it 3 times. This is my friend Olivia. Did not ask for her permission to do this either. So winning here. But you get the point that Olivia is a photographer. And what kind of photography do you think she does? These are the best. Yeah. So she is my best friend in Detroit. She does family photography. That is her adorable little daughter, Rumi, in the middle. To the right is one of her clients. So we get the idea when we are talking about those headshots to be able, if you have a prop, to be able to bring in to show what you do, similar to Starla's. I also wanted to point out, I use this as an example for the watermark. So that is when, now she was using this as to just show her logo on a picture. And I'm like, right, Faith? Right? This is all right? making sure, right, if you have that and you've submitted that, the media cannot run that photo with a watermark, so that is not helpful. But also it's telling me, like, did you have permission to use this? No. When you get your photos, they're not going to have that watermark. So that means that you got the version that allowed you to have that. And then as you can see, like, perfect example, she was promoting an event. She got the permission from her client and was able to use that in her promotions. This one seems like one of those, you shouldn't have to tell me this, but I'm going to tell you this anyway, that you need to have a link, which you will note is not an email address, and it's not another place people can find you, and it's not a phone number. It is a link. It could be to your Instagram page. Honestly, if that lots of people do that, that's their website, right? I just push people to my Instagram, and then from there, it's going to have my link tree or my link in bio, and it's going to tell them all the places they can find me. That's great. I'm on board with that. When we are doing things digitally, that's easier. If you are talking print, no print publication is going to be like, and then go find them at this, and then these numbers and whatever, right? You might get away, you can typically get away with an Instagram / your handle. But beyond that, that's about as custom as you want a link to appear in print. So now with Canva, there are so many places that you could just do a free landing page that if you have nothing but your headshot, more contact information, but if you have that URL and that domain, because where else are people going to find you? So just make sure that you have something that is a link. I want to wrap up here in a minute just to make sure that we have time for Q&As, but I did want to touch on, I have a toolkit. So what that looks like for me, and you might customize this differently for you, is I have a link to a Word document. This is not fancy. It is view only. But in that link, in that Word document, I have a short bio about myself. That's my 2 sentences. I've got the long one that involves my dog and, a side of town I live on and where I'm from. I have my links to my headshots, which are in, again, a public drive that I have made sure that link is accessible and not locked, and it's set to view only. And in that folder, I have some headshots. I might have some lifestyle photos. In the past, I've even had like family photos that I was okay with sharing. But that way, depending on what the person was covering, they were able to just go grab what they wanted. I would name the file name, like Leslie Bailey Headshots, credit Faith Blackwell Photography, making sure that that's in your naming file or in the email, or I would say, I always try and do both. Hey, make sure if you're going to use these are my photos, but please credit this photographer, because that's really important. I link to all the different websites and socials where you can find me, as well as contact info. Because once you start getting into the habit of doing all this media, you're not going to have to retype this every time, right? After 1,000 times of being like, oh, and here's this, and customizing, every once in a while you might have to go in and maybe you want to speak to something in your bio specifically about your love of animals for the whatever you're doing. But for the most part, you'll be able to utilize those. So we've talked a lot about like photography and print. On the audio side of things, just making sure that you have a setup right now. I mean, a lot of this came out of COVID. I used to do my Fox 59 segments from our basement on Zoom. Things can still come up now, though. Maybe you had a live segment in studio planned, but you have a sick kid at home. Every once in a while, outlets will still allow you to jump on a Zoom, or maybe you are an expert in your field and here in Indy and somebody from California wants to reach out to you. They're not going to fly you in. They're not going to fly a journalist in, but they'll do those remote interviews. So you just want to make sure that you have those basics. And we're not going to get into those today, but just making sure that you've got a good microphone, whether that's an actual mic or you're using your headphone, like we can get into the details about. the pros and cons with those, but making sure you have that. Even if you're doing a phone interview, like a lot of times just making sure you've tested your equipment in advance. I have definitely been the person where my headphones die and then the phone's disconnecting, and it's a nightmare for the person on the other end who might be recording. Also guilty of showing up to podcast recordings, forgetting that those are often video recorded. And I'm like, just left the gym, and you will find many a podcast recording out there of me on videos, not aware that we were going to do a video. So now I know that even if it is a podcast recording, I need to come camera ready, because you never know when that is going to be the case. Not to mention, even if they're not going to share the full interview recorded, they're going to share the screenshots for their social or the video or the B-roll. So I'm pretty much cool with it at this point. Like, you're going to get my gym hair, but if that's not the brand you're trying to put in the world, just something to consider. Highly recommend restarting your computer before these things if you're using it, checking your signal strength, and making sure you arrive early, just like you would in an in-person interview. So now that we've gone through all of this, next month, we're going to really dive in to how to pitch the media. And like, why did we do it this way? Well, because I think a lot of people start with I want to know how to reach the media, and I want to know how to talk to them, and how do I do a pitch, and how do I design that? But that's really getting ahead of yourselves if you don't have the basic things that we talked about today. So that way, when you do your pitch, if it gets picked up right away, because you just wrote a really good pitch, and you're like, you know what? We want to put you on a podcast. And you're like, oh, well, my screen is broken on my computer and I don't have the thing, and they're asking for a headshot. This is why we're starting with the must-haves and the basics. And then we're going to go into how to actually get the media's attention if they haven't come to you. So that will be February 27th here, same time, same place. And then your offer today is, I do power hours of consulting where I talk through a lot of stuff related to this, but we can also talk about media, we can talk about marketing, PR. Our members, this part is not the special offer. Our members always get those at a discounted rate of $97. If you are not a member, that price goes up a lot. Obviously, I want to incentivize you to join our community so you get perks like this. But if you book, we'll send out this slide as well. But if you book for this, we're going to add on a follow-up. Like, usually I'm just like, go out into the world, and if you want to find me again, but we'll be able to do a follow-up to touch base and talk through anything that you want to talk through. So that's where you can find me. I'm pretty easy to find, so you probably don't even need this slide. It just seemed like a formality that I would do. But I want to open the floor to any questions. Or I did such a great job, you have none. Oops. Thank you. Yes. Why? Yeah. Because of the world. Yeah.
But if I am active on LinkedIn, really professional.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think that we're going to see, at least from what I see from entrepreneurship sides, and especially like building community side of things, that we're going to see a larger shift towards private online communities. So like Indie Maven, we run a private community called Circle. So as a member of Maven Space or Indie Maven, you have access to that. The number of people, and I don't know if you're seeing this in your feeds, but who are talking about deleting their social media, but are like, but where to go next? And yes, there are new platforms that are popping up and people are experimenting with them, but you don't know that they're going to take off. You don't know how long they're going to stick around, TikTok. So I would say, as far as that networking community building goes, I think that's a trend. I think we're going to see a lot of people do that. So I don't think that's going to be like a terrible decision. I think especially as long as you have one, if your spot's going to be LinkedIn, I think that's probably better because there's less pressure to feel like you need to be everywhere. And I think, I don't know what your side thing is going to be, but knowing you and your business, I think that's a perfect place to be. So, yes.
So do you feel like that? This is a lengthy question, so I'll disclaim that. Do you feel like a lot of people I know we're serial entrepreneurs, we have multiple things going on, different images for different things. The reason why I ask is I speak. I try to speak for a living. Very known for that. Like that's the thing. I do workouts outside of that, so it's like I'm in the crossroads right now, simply because the big bucks are from the speaking. That's the bad. And then the other thing is like a passion, and so I do want to pour into it, but people kind of know me for both, so I'm like maybe that should be separate. Or it's separate, but like images and all those type of things. I take a lot of photos speaking. I got a lot of headshots or whatever, but like the workout stuff, I kind of I stray away from me taking photos. I take some of the girls and stuff like that. So yeah, when you have like I guess two parts to how to kind of separate their any idea as far as.
I mean, I think in this case, you are the brand either way. So that's something too, as journalists, we talked a lot about in the newsroom. It's like, well, I'm the reporter, but I'm also like this. People trust people, not brands, right? So they're here for you, whether you're speaking or you're leading a workout class or your personal training, whatever it is you do, they're here for you. So I would say whatever you think best represents you. And if we're talking, say, like an Instagram feed, if you're trying to figure out, like, well, how am I going to curate this? Is it going to look like, I think as long as it's very consistent in that I do this and I do this, that's fine. I don't think people are going to. Now, if you're really trying to run two completely separate businesses that have really nothing to do with each other, I think, because I have gone through this myself too with two different brands and two different businesses. And at some point, what I am doing is close enough that they're really merging together. But if you feel like you never really want to get those commingled, you could do that. But I wouldn't look at it as like a separate brand. Like you have to do totally new branding. I might just look at it like, okay, I've got my speaking stuff over here and I've got my other stuff, but I wouldn't be afraid to commingle them because people are there for you. And then why not? If you're speaking, I would guess, not having heard you speak, you're probably at some point going to talk about other things you do or your hobbies are in your bio. So there's nothing wrong with having both. If that answers your question. Does that answer your question? I mean, I would keep both, but if you are going to say, this is my speaking website, no, we don't need photos of you working out. If you're going to do a whole different website that's of your fitness brand, now you can also have them linked, right? So you can have like on one website, you're linked at the top to your other one. If their services are going to be different, I would definitely do two different web experiences. But as far as photos go, I would have both. I just wouldn't be afraid to commingle them.
Yeah, that answers the question. I have two different websites and all those different type of things. It's just I've been trying to figure this out for some time now because, my client base knows me a lot for the equity work, the leadership, maybe a little wellness. They might get that. But for Black girls who lift, it's like it's an Indianapolis. People know I'm gonna have workouts. They're gonna know X, Y, and Z. Have people ask me to speak? Sure, I'll do X, Y, and Z. But it's just been a crossword for me.
I have a couple examples I can send you too.
It's just a crossword for me. So I've been trying to figure out and navigate that for like the past year, and I said this year I'm gonna have to really hone in and figure that out because I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
So I just have
honestly, you're going to talk to multiple people who are going to tell you multiple things. That's why I would say you kind of just have to do what feels right for you, because I could tell you one thing and it might not feel right. So I would lean into what feels right, but have both options available. We can have another conversation about it. But yeah, I definitely would. My point is, do not completely isolate them, because that's just not who we are as humans, right? I'm standing up here, but I'm also a mom, and I'm standing up here, but I also do other things. So don't be afraid. That's the point. Yes.
Your toolkit, I love the way you have that set up.
Thanks.
What do you say you have that housed at?
I just have that in a Google Doc, in a view only link in a Google Doc. I at one point had like a pretty Canva PDF, but then it was one more thing that I constantly had to update if something changed, right? even like the ages of my kids used to be in my long bio, and then I'd read it and be like, that's not how old they are. So just like the more I constantly had to update, I found that for me was the easiest way and the least amount of places to track.
And when someone asks you for your information, you just send them the whole drive.
Yes. And even if they didn't ask for my headshots, I'm like, you are getting one link.
Got it. I love
That's what
that.
you're getting. You didn't ask, but it's all here. This is where it's housed, and you can pick and choose. I know that everything in that link is available for public consumption. There's nothing private on there, so anybody can use whatever they want. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I love that too, especially how a lot of podcast movies are like trying to create the things for all the 20 different people. It's crazy. So I have a question about, I know a lot of this is professionalism and like the headshots and all of that. What are your thoughts about the authenticity of yourself, especially with the businesses? I'm a mindset nurse, and everything I do with my clients, like helping them reach their goals, but it really foundationally is like living the life that you want. So I find that my social medias are very much about my life, the authentic parts, the down parts, up parts, or whatever, and I think that's really important. So how do you balance that when your social medias are also about business?
I would not overthink it, but I would also give yourself some parameters and guidelines and rails. So I have things that there's nothing personally that I won't talk about. I shy away now from putting pictures of my kids. Like that's a very just specific thing. I find that content pillars or content buckets you'll hear people talk about. If you want to make it where I want to talk about 4 different things, or in her case, 2 different things, but I don't want it to feel all over the place, then choose in advance. These are my content pillars or my content buckets, and it's motherhood and fitness and food and business. And pretty much if I'm going to put it on my social, this is not what I do, but I've dabbled. Ultimately, I don't care enough because that just is not the thing where I'm going to spend my energy, but that might change and that evolve. But like, this is the 4 things that you're going to find from me. And then you're training your audience. So when something does come out of left field, it's like, oh, wait, that doesn't fit. Number 1, you might use that as a strategy to get people's attention. Like, hey, this is not what I usually talk about, but the fact that I am means it's really important and I want you to pay attention. But people also like to know what they're going to get. And in my case, I like to think you don't know what you're going to get, and that's the brand. But if you're trying to kind of corral multiple things, I would kind of just maybe pick your top 4 and stick to those, or 3, or however many. I would not do more than 5. I think 3 is a really good spot.
So it doesn't have to, like your thoughts, like the headshots and all that, I think it's important, but it doesn't bring personal to me. So I have those, but I also like, here I am just chilling with my kids doing great.
And that's context of like, are we talking about social media? Like in these purposes, we're talking about for the media specifically, right? So what I would recommend for your Instagram might be very different than what we're talking about as far as, that doesn't mean you won't have a lifestyle photo, that like the media will run a lifestyle photo. But ultimately that's probably more than what they're looking for. So that's a little bit different than your social feed. Yeah. Yes.
So I'm a
Congrats.
thank you. Coming from 9 to 5, so I was but I'm a perfectionist, and I'm learning not to be because it paralyzes me. And so if you could give me one thing that I could do to get started in everything that we just talked about today, what would that be?
Well, I would say the overarching theme, regardless of which, if you decide that you want to start with your photography or your website, I would say the overarching theme is just do it dirty. Because I also want to wait until everything is perfect. And that is what left me with 10-year-old headshots. Because I was like, well, no, I mean, I don't want to book it because I have to get my hair done and I have to do the right outfit. And then if I'm going to do it, I want to invest in it. And then it was like, I never did. I just never got around to doing it. Or the same thing with the website. I would rather you have a landing page with, it's not fancy, it doesn't do anything, than not have it at all. So regardless of which one you pick, like I would rather you have, I will take a photo of you right now and that can be your headshot. I'd rather you have that than not a headshot at all. So just not letting the perfection get in your own way. I Gary Vee, if you guys know Gary Vee, he is a big fan of document, don't create. So if we're specifically talking like on the social media side of things, or even if you don't know what you're going to use that photo, if we're talking a lot about photos, but because it feeds into so many different things, right? Just document it. You might use it later, you might not. Don't think about it like, I'm going to take this photo and it's only going to be used for my headshots, or I'm going to take this photo and it's going to look so great on my Instagram feed. Just take photos, take lots of photos. And then at some point you can go back and go through and say, that's going to be really great for this, or that's going to be really, or you don't use any of it, but at least you were able to document in that moment. And then later you can create something. So document, don't create, and just do it dirty. Don't get in your own way. Anything else? Okay, we're like right on. Yep. Oh, sorry, one more.
Just in the spirit of Leslie encouraging everyone shots or whatever. This is my friend Megan. She's a photographer.
Yay!
She's also an amazing mom and marketing professional who started her business. So I'm sure
Congrats!
And I appreciate the do it dirty because I did it.
I love that. Yeah, we can get in our own way so easily sometimes. Ask me how I know. Well, thank you all. I look forward to hopefully seeing you next month or at a power hour soon, or just here around Maven Space. Thank you. Was that okay? So sorry. Thanks. When I saw you, I was like, oh, I should ask your permission. But I figured it was all good things and you wouldn't mind. Oh, good. Good. Tell her I said hi. Huh? Andy. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hello. I was saying hi.
They're moving by us.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. I told her that. Oh, I'm sorry. I forget. I need you before you go. Hi, Nora. Sorry, Nora. I want to introduce you to Faith Blackwell because you're going to be neighbors. Sure, her studio is going to be right in Quadruple. Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
Good to see you. Thanks for coming. I'm glad you could make it.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Good. I hope it was helpful.
It's so
Oh, good. Yes, May is the move. Fingers freaking crossed. I mean, it will. It's just I don't know what stage it's going to look like, but yeah. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, yeah. Good. Good to see you. Hey, hi, how are you? Oh, that's so sweet. Awesome. Oh, yeah, yeah. If you just email me, yeah, yeah. It's such a time saver. Like, I swear it's one of my proudest accomplishments, and it's the simplest thing, but I just think it saved so much time. Like, without having... Yeah, I mean, usually they kind of know the background of why, who you are because they're doing that, but it's like, they want any, like, oh, we'd love to know more. I'm like, well, you can read this and then let me know. In fact, I might even, that's a good point, I might even put like I think it's good to say like, well, how, not only just the contact, but like maybe these are the things I offer. That would also be a good section. Like I'm just, as we're saying this aloud, I could be like, oh, here's I do power hours and I do, like maybe listing offerings if that's appropriate.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, and it's just like all there, and they can choose what they want. And if it's not applicable, then they can ignore it. You're welcome. Yeah, just email me. Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
One of the things that I noticed that's coming up for me, and I just want to ask it out loud. I started a YouTube, and I talk about leadership, women, stepping into their confidence, blah, blah, blah. And I noticed what's coming into my content is a lot of political stuff. I'm trying to reel myself in. Does that make sense?
Like you find yourself going political and what you're talking about? It's hard not to, right?
It's hard not to.
And I don't know. Because think about it. Her disabilities, all kinds of stuff. I don't even know what my question is. I'm like, how much of that?
How do you,
Yeah, how do I temper it? Or do I just like shock this and just go rogue? But I don't want to do that either.
there's a woman, have you heard of Susan Hyatt? Have you heard of Rachel Rogers? She is the author, and she has her book is We Should All Be Millionaires. Through her, I found this woman, Susan Hyatt, who does a lot of like coaching for women. She has gone very like a little bit political. I also was like, oh wow, we're going okay. But it's her brand. Her brand is I am outspoken. I'm going to stand up for what I don't think is right. So I think it's your level of comfort. That clearly is a comfort-based space. She has no problem being like, no, this is not okay. And I found, even though it's not what I think I was following her for, I'm here for it. I found it inspiring, it resonated, and it felt authentic. So I think it's not so much like I don't think anyone can tell you weird. But I think you all
I'm in her audience.
Honestly, because if you don't, then you don't have anyone to piss off. So when the people